Welcome to Justice Matters. I'm Denise George, Attorney General of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Justice Matters is a program aimed to inform, engage, and empower you with knowledge of Virgin Islands laws that affect our everyday lives and our community. We have insightful discussions with special guests on the laws and related topics so you can be empowered to make a difference in our community and to be a part of the solution. Today's topic is on preventing substance abuse and overdose. We are focusing on law enforcement's efforts to reduce the harmful influences of illegal drugs and substance abuse on and in our community, and particularly on our youth. There is an organization consisting of federal and local law enforcement officials and leaders in Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands who have joined forces to do just that. It is called the Puerto Rico Virgin Islands HIDTA, which stands for the High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area. HIDTA's primary mission is to enhance and coordinate drug control efforts among federal and local law enforcement agencies by reducing drug trafficking. This is done through several ways, including drug education, tactical investigations, criminal intelligence, and overdose response strategies. Local members of HIDTA include the Virgin Islands Attorney General, Virgin Islands Police Commissioner, Virgin Islands National Guard Adjutant General, U.S. Attorney of the Virgin Islands, and other federal and law enforcement agencies, along with our counterparts in Puerto Rico. Joining us today on Justice Matters is Rodney Querrard of St. Thomas, a former Virgin Islands Police Commissioner who is now a drug intelligence officer with the HIDTA and working directly with the HIDTA Overdose Response Strategy Program on drug abuse and overdose prevention in the Virgin Islands, especially focused on our youth, particularly regarding the hidden dangers of drug use among minors, including the emerging use and abuse of edibles. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Querrard.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm glad to be here today.
Oh, that's good. I want to first of all let everybody know a bit about your background. You have been in law enforcement for many, many years. And
Yes.
Just tell us a little bit about that first.
Well, I was a part of the Virgin Islands Police Department for 28 years. I was police chief in the St. Thomas St. John District for 5 years. I was police commissioner for the territory for 2 years. And I was also a task force officer with the Drug Enforcement Administration for almost 10 years back in the day. So I had a feel for a little bit of the local side and the federal side when it comes to law enforcement.
And now as a drug, a drug intelligence officer
Yes.
with HIDTA. Tell us more about that. What is your role? What do you do with respect to HIDTA?
Drug intelligence officer is a liaison between the local and federal government law enforcement agencies. It bridges the gap. The drug intelligence officer came about through the overdose response strategy, which is the ORS, we call it the ORS, through the ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy. The whole ORS situation started because of the increase of overdose deaths in the United States. And they decided to have liaisons in not only the law enforcement side, but also on the public health side. So they created a position called the DIO, the Drug Intelligence Officer, which I am, and also a public health analyst, PHA. I have a public health analyst also assigned here in the Virgin Islands. So I am the Drug Intelligence Officer for the entire USVI, and Amelin Worthy is my public health analyst here. She works on the public health side, for the entire territory. We have counterparts in Puerto Rico, and we also have drug intelligence officers and PHAs throughout the United States in the various states.
Okay, so what is the function then of what you do?
The
the ORS as well.
The drug intelligence officer and the PHA, we bridge the gap between law enforcement and public health. A lot of times, law enforcement runs their own way. Public health runs their own way. And sometimes there's a breakdown in the information sharing. For instance, overdose cases. Sometimes there may be a case where there might be an overdose case that goes to a hospital or to, a medical facility, and law enforcement has no idea about it. So there's no way of following up on that information. But the public health analyst, she's a liaison. She gathers all the information she can on the public health side. And me as a drug intelligence officer on the law enforcement side gather information, and we share that information to whom it needs to go. And not only that, as a drug intelligence officer, say for instance, somebody from Florida gets arrested here in the USVI for a drug-related crime. I would make sure to take that information and pass that information on to a drug intelligence officer in Florida so they can make sure that information gets to whatever law enforcement agency so they can be aware that, you know, this person from their community was arrested here for a drug-related offense. So you never know, it might be an ongoing case on their end involving that same individual.
So what is the response strategy with respect to what you carry out in your position here in the Virgin Islands, this aspect of what do you do? What are your functions?
Gathering information, sharing information, going out talking to groups like I am here today. Last week we were in St. Croix and we spoke at 3 different schools over there with a total of between students, faculty, and staff, I would say probably like 2,200 people. We spoke at Woodson, we spoke at Complex, and we spoke also at Central. And it's not just me going to speak to these youth and teachers, faculty, and staff. We had a representative from, we had the SAC, the special agent in charge for Drug Enforcement Administration for Puerto Rico. She was a guest speaker. We had the Adjutant General for the U.S. Virgin Islands, Kojo. Yes. He was a guest speaker. We also had a U.S. Marshal, originally from Trinidad, but assigned to St. Croix. He was a guest speaker. We had Assistant Police Commissioner Elsko, also as a guest speaker. I spoke, Amelin spoke. We had National Guard with a great presentation about drinking and, you know, alcohol and stuff like that. We had a combined effort of not only the locals, but federal agencies working together again to get the message out about overdose cases, peer pressure, making right life choices, etc.
Oh, so it is basically a lot of it has to do, that strategy has to do with education.
Education, and, prevention. That is our whole focus. Part of my duties as a drug intelligence officer was also to see if the initiation of a product or a way of gathering information for overdose cases through OD map. You know, that was one of my things that I needed to jump on right away when I was hired. But it was realized that we do not have as many OD cases as the States and Puerto Rico does. I mean, last year alone, overdose deaths in the United States were over 108,000. And they're expecting that number to go up this year. So the overdose response strategy through the Office of National Drug Control Policy is doing everything they can to prevent further deaths by getting the message out, doing everything we can to make sure that everybody who needs to know, including our community, about what OD, you know, what drug causes you and can cause you death. You know, we're trying to get that message out so we can ensure that, you know, that number don't go up and we want it to just continue decreasing. But it's going to be a hard ladder to climb.
Well, let's talk about even going back to when you talk to the schools. And so that brings us to the topic really regarding the impact of drugs, cannabis, and particularly edibles on our youth, and what you're doing with respect to that, your education and information with respect to that. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Last year, or actually early this year, toward the end of the school year, we got some calls about some youth in the schools actually overdosing on edibles. Edibles, marijuana edibles, are marijuana-infused snacks or foods like candy, gummy bears, cookies, cakes, brownies, chips, Fruit Loops, etc., even juices. You know, marijuana can be added to practically any product, any food, any snack, usually either by an oil or by a paste. It can be, you know, there's many different ways you can practically use it in any, like I said, any food or snack.
Does it look any different?
No, it don't.
It looks exactly like just a regular.
That's where the problem comes in.
Apart from the fact that we know that, you know, marijuana, cannabis is not legal, except, you know, above certain levels. But still, apart from that, what is that problem?
The problem is the THC from the cannabis sativa plant, marijuana plant. The active ingredient called tetrahydrocannabinol, the short is THC, because I myself have a difficult time saying that word, you know, often. So I use a short term THC. It's a chemical that causes you to feel high. That is the chemical in the marijuana plant that causes you to feel high. And according to the dosage that you take, can cause some serious ramifications for the person who took it, either a youth or even an adult, because of the levels of the THC in the particular product, or even juice, like I said. The big thing around here that I'm hearing about is chocolate cake, gummy bears, brownies for sure. But it could be added to practically anything, juices, And the thing about it is the person who is taking that product might not even know it's infused marijuana, because it looks, smells, and tastes exactly like the regular product. Mm-hmm. So you can be utilizing it not knowing that you're actually eating a marijuana edible.
So the part that's dangerous, well, let's say, for instance, with respect to youth, what are the effects of the THC or the eating of the edibles, why it is so dangerous, particularly with respect to our youth?
There's a number of things that it causes. It causes intoxication, changed perception, slurred speech, fast heart rate, intense sleepiness, trouble breathing, anxiety, panic, vomiting or the feel to vomit, dizziness, weakness, seizures. You can even go into a coma. These are some of the effects that, having too much of an edible or THC into your system can cause.
And how do you, as far as the absorption of the THC, particularly when you're eating edibles as opposed to anything else, how does that affect the probability of getting an overdose or using overdose? So how does that work?
The dosage recommended in a controlled environment is between 2.5 and 5 milligrams of marijuana extract, or like I said, the paste or the oil into a product. Mm-hmm. That's the minimum. Between 2.5 and 5, that's what they recommend for an adult, not child, because children are not supposed to be nowhere close around these things. Mm-hmm. But let me give you an example. Portion size can be very confusing, because a 50-gram chocolate bar, regular size chocolate bar, may contain 100 milligrams of THC. That's 10 times the dosage, 10 dosages that one would expect one person to have. Mm-hmm. So imagine a child getting a hand on a chocolate bar that looks like a regular chocolate bar, tastes like a regular chocolate bar, looks like a regular chocolate bar, eats it, and get 10 times the dosage that would affect an adult, much less a child. These are the things that we got to worry about. Again, we have stores in the Virgin Islands that sell edibles. Stores selling the legal edibles, of course, supposedly to adults. But we also have people in our community making the edibles themselves, not knowing or not having a good measurement of the amount of THC product paste or oil that's going into that product, causing our youth to have issues.
Well, how long does it take once a person eats one of the edibles for it to then, for them to feel effects of, let's say, intoxication or feeling high or whatever the effects on their body?
Excellent question, because everybody's body chemistry is different. Mm-hmm. I might be able to take an edible, and I might gradually get an effect between a half an hour and up to 3-4 hours. It might take a long time, but a smaller person might get an effect quicker, and a larger person might take longer. But edibles are funny things. It's not like you get a medication, and in a matter of a short time, the medication works on your body and you get the effect. Marijuana edibles can take from 30 minutes for you to even start getting the effects, up to 3 and 4 hours. Again, it's all up to that individual's person body chemistry. Unfortunately, what happens is somebody would eat some gummy bears, and a half an hour later, this thing ain't bothering me. I could take some more. They pop some more. Hour passes, I ain't getting nothing. They pop some more. And when it hits them 2 or 3 hours, 4 hours later, it hits them hard, because everything registers at one time. Yes. That's where the problem comes in. And that's where our youth are being fooled, because they are given gummy bears, or they take gummy bears between friends or whatever, and eventually it hits them hard, because they, of course, you have a bag with gummy bears. You think you want to be able to eat one, AG? It's probably some like a chip, potato chips. You can't just eat one. You want to eat some more. Right. And when it hits, it causes you to have some serious effects, unfortunately.
And there, in some of the reading that I was looking at, they refer to THC as sometimes having a psychoactive effect, or it is the psychoactive ingredient in marijuana.
Definitely.
So what about the psychosis, and is that a part of what you do your education on?
Yes.
The possible psychosis or psychotic effect, particularly on the youth, on the young brain, developing brain. What can you say more about that?
That's the whole problem. THC in a developing brain can lead to brain-nerve disconnection that affects memory and IQ and can lead to substance abuse later in life. We have a speaker. I'm included in many webinars and Zoom calls, et cetera, with different people in public health and everything else. And this one lady had a son, because he's passed now, that started smoking marijuana when he was in the eighth grade. And by the time he was in college, he was psychotic. It completely screwed up everything about him. He's changed his demeanor. He had to seek counseling, and eventually he ended up overdosing in another product down the road. Again, stepping stone. Started off with marijuana, wanted to get a little more higher, and they just stepped up. It's just like starting with alcohol. Some people start off with drinking a beer. And the beer, I'm not getting no effects like I used to anymore, so they go to hard liquor. And then they continue stepping up, increasing the grade or the quality or the amount of alcohol in a particular product. It's the same thing, with marijuana and, practically every other drug. People need to realize, all these substances are not good for you one way or the other. The best thing to do is just stay away from it from the beginning, especially for our youth. If you're in a home where you utilize, marijuana, alcohol, cigarettes, whatever it is, keep it as far as you are away from your children as you can. Prescription drugs, that's another situation. All these different things, we just need to educate our youth that these things are not in your best interest. Stay far away. And that's where we as adults and, community leaders and members, that's where we come in to make sure and instill in our youth that these are not the best life choices to make.
So what do you tell the youth, since that is a part of what you do?
Yes.
What do you tell the youth about edibles, about those other drugs, but particularly edibles, which just seem so innocent? Yep. It's a brownie, it's a cake, it's it's something and popular. What do you tell them so they could protect themselves?
I tell them more or less the same thing I just mentioned. I give them all the facts. Let them know. First of all, a lot of the students that we've been speaking to knows of someone who utilized edibles in the past, knows of the reaction that they got from their friends. And a lot of them saying they don't want nothing to do with it. But again, the problem is not, okay, you might say you don't want anything to do with it, but you might innocently be given a gummy bear that you assume is a regular gummy bear or a regular piece of chocolate cake or a regular brownie that, your mom made, and unfortunately it's marijuana infused. It's a marijuana infused edible. So the children nowadays the main thing is we're trying to make sure, educate and let them know the facts. Let them know that these things are not as innocent as people think they are. They're not as, you cannot look at one product and say, well, this one don't have it and that one has it, because you really cannot know. The only way to make sure is to have it tested. And of course, nobody's going to go to that, to that extent, especially when it comes to our youth. So be careful of who your friends are. Just because your friends say, man, take this here, I made it. Stay away from it. Go home and let your mom make it, or your, somebody in your household make it, where it's in a controlled environment, where there's not marijuana infused, because you really cannot tell. And in a school environment with peer pressure, that's difficult. If somebody comes into school in the morning, when we went to school, and somebody says, listen, here's some chocolate chip cookies. Are you going to say no? It's difficult to say no. Exactly. You're going to assume it's made by the mom and it's safe and everything else. But unfortunately, nowadays, you got to assume that it's marijuana infused, a product. So it's best thing to just say no. Go and buy it in a store in a proper container, bag, whatever it comes in. Take these steps just to make sure that you, as an individual, are safe, and also look out for your family and friends. If you see a friend and they're getting involved with the edibles or any other type of drug, just try and guide them right. And if you see you're not making no headway, pass it on to an adult, teacher, the principal, somebody, and just try and stay away from that person, because peer pressure is a bad thing.
Yes, and what would you say the parents could do, or parents and adults in the community, to help with this and to help to educate or protect the youth?
First of all, they need to be educated themselves, and that's one of our goals. The overdose response strategy here. We started this group called the Virgin Islands HIDTA Prevention Initiative. This was initiated here by my deputy director of HIDTA, Mr. James Doby. As a matter of fact, I started attending some of the meetings even before I was completely hired on. I was approved for the job and everything, but it was still a hiring process they had to go through. And I started attending these meetings just to get a head start. So when I got there, I would hit the ground running. And he started this initiative, and that's where this initiative, this whole positive vibes alone came. That was the term that we used for these presentations in high school in St. Croix. But it's under the U.S. Virgin Islands HIDTA Prevention Initiative. And our goal is not only to, speak to the students, faculty, staff. Our goal is to also do like I'm doing right now, speaking to the community, speaking to parents, going out, speaking to our community leaders. We had meetings at Government House, and, I'd like to, get the message out to as many people as possible. Because at the end of the day, I would not like somebody to say, I didn't know.
And regardless of where a person is on whether it should be legalized or not, and aside from that, the whole thing is like really understanding what it is.
Exactly.
And regarding that there are side effects. And I think one of the things that you said, and I wanted to elaborate a little bit more on that, is that everyone is different. Their tolerance is different. So even though particularly our concern here is that mainly the youth, but just generally, it might have no effect on someone. Also, as studies have shown, also with the development of the brain, particularly with youth, it can have significant psychosis effects.
Long-term effects. That's the thing about it. It's not an issue that can affect you today and tomorrow you get up and you're gone. It's not like that. You continue using these different products, and eventually it would cause long-term problems in your life. There's no doubt about it. And again, we don't want to be, telling people, look, you have to do this, you have to do this. We're just passing on the message. We're trying to educate, to let them know the facts. I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm not here to say, the good and bad of it. I'm just saying plain out, I'm telling everyone the facts of utilizing these products. Because at the end of the day, in my opinion, it's just not worth it.
And I think even with your years in law enforcement, I know in my years with law enforcement, even sometimes we've seen for many years, you see, let's say incidents happen, particularly with a lot of the youth, but incidents may happen and then they have to get a psychiatric evaluation. And then it comes back that they have this thing, what they call cannabis-induced psychosis.
That's right.
This is not something new. I mean, years ago.
It's been around for years.
Sometimes it has that effect, just like that, on a person. It wouldn't have the same effect on another, but sometimes it would have that effect and causing them to act out and commit certain offenses because of it.
But AG, the scary part about it, years ago, the strains or the potencies of the marijuana was a lot less. A lot less. And nowadays, the potency is so crazy because they're cloning, they're doing, you name it, they're doing everything they can to these products. And it's causing serious problems. And people don't realize it until it happens to them or one of their family members or one of their friends. By then it's too late.
Right.
All it takes, and you don't have to take my word for it. You can go up online, you just look under marijuana edibles, under marijuana, under any type of drug, even alcohol, whatever. You can go up and look about the effects it causes one. And we're not around forever. Our human bodies are not made to, take all these different foreign products. And the best thing to do, again, is just say no. The best thing to do is just say, especially for our youth. We're trying to make sure that they get the proper education, they're healthy and all that stuff. But these different side things that's happening on the sides is causing their demise, either now, immediately, or down the road, it will probably cause their demise. So we're just trying to instill in them, make the right choice, do the right thing, take this information to heart. Don't take my word for it, follow up more on it, because all the information is there to be seen. Mm-hmm. The best thing to do is just say no.
Yeah, I was looking at one of your statements, and you made a statement, our youth are finding ways to get these products, not knowing that they are playing Russian roulette with their lives.
That's right. That is the truth. Again, they hear this term edibles, they're going to find some way of getting it. They have friends have friends. And unfortunately, we have adults in our community, like I said, who are making these products, not knowing exactly how much THC they're infusing into these products. And a child, because they want to fit in, they want to be part of the group, because of peer pressure, they want to try it. And they may be the unfortunate one to get a bad batch. Just stay away. You're actually playing Russian roulette with your lives. It is not worth it. I don't see it. Like I said, I've been to all types of cases in my law enforcement career. And if I can save one person, again, it is all worth it. That's why I'm out here promoting this. That's why, I'm trying to get the message out so nobody can't say they weren't told. Unfortunately, a lot of younger people, especially teenagers, I was there. I was once a teenager also. We all felt at the time, and a lot of people nowadays, that nobody can tell us now that we have all answers. But nobody has all answers. It's best to be educated so you can know the ramifications. But our goal is to save as many of our youth, especially, and our adult community also. But our youth, we need to focus on them and guide them the best we can in the right direction.
With education, and thank you so much.
Education, prevention. That's what it's all about.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going
anytime, AJ.
And this is just part one, because we're going to talk with you on these issues with respect to drugs in our community.
Thank you on behalf of ONDCP, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, the Overdose Response Strategy, and the Puerto Rico U.S. Virgin Islands HIDTA. And I definitely want to acknowledge the director, Santana, for HIDTA, and the deputy director, James Doby. Samuel Santana is the director, and the deputy director is James Doby. They're doing an excellent job, and they're trying to do everything they can through HIDTA to assist the U.S., VI, and Puerto Rico in their efforts to make it better.
But thank you so much for
anything I could do for this community, I'm here for it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Justice Matters. And remember to stay tuned to part 2 of Preventing Substance Abuse and Overdose.